What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Bayou Bengals football. So I wanted to start with this. So I wanted to talk. So Zai Alexander, the corner they landed from southeastern Louisiana, he's an interesting guy, and I wanted to talk about why I wanted to talk about Zai Alexander is because I'm thinking he's projected to start by one of the scouting services, Arland Scouting, and what I'm thinking is, I thought of this. What if Zai Alexander becomes an elite difference maker for the LSU secondary? How big would that be for this LSU team? Would that be a key? Is that probably one of the key missing pieces for this LSU team to go from really good to elite to national title contender? So Zai Alexander certainly a guy to watch. You go back and you watch him play you watch his tape at Southeastern Louisiana. This is a guy who he has really good ball skills. I mean, talking about a guy that had 9 interceptions the last 2 seasons, so can make plays on the ball. Coming out of high school, a 0-star recruit, no offers from LSU. But when you go back and I watched some of his high school tape, and I'm thinking like the acceleration, like coming downhill, making tackles. It was like the movement skills were all there even in high school. It was just he played quarterback and was I think it seemed like he took quarterback a little more seriously. Not that he didn't take defense seriously, but I think that's where he really that's what he really focused on, and his offense or his high school team really kind of made quarterback the main focal point for him. And but yeah, this is a guy like his skill set. I think now with several years experience too, even though it was at a lower level, I think he's ready to have a breakout elite type of year. Excuse me, and I think that's huge for LSU if he does. Even if he just translate to a really good player, I think that is critical. But yeah, Zai Alexander, I don't think is getting enough talk. I don't think that question has been posed. What if he does become an elite difference maker for this LSU secondary? I think he definitely could be. I'm excited to see how he does, and I'm excited to hear if there's any more buzz of him at camp, because that's one thing I've kind of thought about. Like, I wish I was there to evaluate these guys, but a lot of times the tape speaks for itself. So a lot of these incoming freshmen, I can look at their high school tape and really get a good grasp for how good they're going to be. So with Zai Alexander, watch some of his high school tape, kind of got a good feel for his traits. Then you watch his highlights. You see the ball skills. You see his ability to turn, jump up, go make plays on the ball. And you really get excited for what this guy could do this season. And then Andre Sam too. I got the same feeling watching Andre. So Andre Sam not projected to start as of now. He's projected to be the backup to Major Burns at strong safety. I know this is all just a projection right now. Brian Kelly has not done a depth chart, and I'm thinking about. Yeah, Andre Sam. So I'm watching him at Marshall last year. I watched the first quarter of the Notre Dame game, and first off, this guy made numerous plays in that game. I don't know why that wasn't talked about more. I mean, a couple pass breakups. There was one he almost had. It wasn't a pass breakup, but he was all over this wide receiver. Notre Dame went fast the next play. It looked like it could have been incomplete. He had a tackle for loss. They were blitzing him off the edge. He was being disruptive. That was all within a few minutes of the first quarter, like 1-2 drives. So Andre Sam, and this guy that can cover man-to-man in the slot. So even if they don't choose to play him in the slot, say Deuce Chestnut starts at the nickelback position at the slot corner, does he challenge Major Burns at strong safety? Major Burns, if you remember, so Burns has played well, but he's dealt with some injury, and even Brian Kelly said that he's got to play, he's got to get on the field, he's got to stay injury free. So I'm thinking, does Andre Sam really challenge Major Burns there at strong safety? And I think this is the kind of the depth and the kind of the challenging that's a good thing, because Major Burns knows that if Sam's going to stay at strong safety, he's going to really push Major Burns. And if Sam beats out Major Burns, Major Burns is not going to go away either. So, even if he plays safety, nickel, if he is the backup at either of those positions, he's going to be pushing those guys. He's going to push Deuce Chestnut if he's the backup at nickel. So I think this is awesome. I think Brian Kelly knows that Andre Sam, Zai Alexander, even though they were impactful at smaller schools, they might not really make that jump they might not make that even though it's not a huge jump, maybe a little bit, it's a bigger jump for Zai. Even if they don't make that big jump and really shine and to develop into good players, they are going to push some of the starters they have, and I think that's what they need in the secondary. I think Major Burns is the perfect player where if he's playing at his highest level, I think that gives him enough. I think that gives him enough juice. I think he can bring enough high-end level play at that position. But he is a guy that if he's not performing at a high level, at his highest level, and making plays, or if he is dealing with injuries, then that's really tough. So I think that Andre Sam, Zai Alexander, two guys I'm super excited for. I know that we haven't seen them play. I think that's why it's tough for LSU fans. There's not a lot of tape out there for Zai Alexander, Andre Sam, and they're two guys. I think that's the immediate reaction for LSU fans. We're excited about it. We're happy. You think depth-wise, but we haven't seen them play at an SEC level, and we already have pretty good players there. So the immediate response is, excitement. We landed another talented guy, but you got to go prove something for us. That's how fan bases are. I think that's really not a bad thing. What has the guy done for us? That is the thing with the transfer portal. What can this guy do for us now? What Sam did at Marshall is great. What Zai Alexander did at Southeastern Louisiana is great, but let's go prove something for us now at LSU. But yeah, we'll talk the running back. So I did a little scouting on Logan Diggs. He is the transfer from Notre Dame. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on what I've seen as far as breaking down Diggs' skill set. So Diggs is a guy who he runs with patience, which is good. He's fairly good burst out of cuts, but it's not great. He actually has good long speed, not elite long speed, but you see him can break long runs. He's got good hands out the backfield. Notre Dame did not really make an emphasis to get him the ball necessarily out of the backfield, but certainly is capable of catching the ball. You can split him out wide. He can line up on the outside. So yeah, I'm a fan. I like Logan Diggs' game. I think he's a guy that's really going to shine. Like I've hammered this point home, but I'll hammer it again. I think LSU and Brian Kelly have done a really good job of getting guys that really complement what they already have. So I think he is a guy that behind their talented offensive line, bringing in some tight ends that I'll touch on that are talented blockers as well. So you bring in a guy that with patience, good patience, very good patience, good vision. I think he'll really do a good job of picking up positive yardage for this offense consistently. So I think that's what Brian Kelly envisions for Logan Diggs, a guy that with his patience and vision is going to be able to consistently get 3-4 yards when he's in the ball game. And also a guy that does have experience, catching the ball, does have good hands. So yeah, I think that's what Brian Kelly expects from Logan Diggs. I don't think Brian Kelly expects Logan Diggs to come in here and just steal the show at running back, become like their dominant RB1, but he is a guy that when we put him in the game, can we have trust that he's going to get us 2-3 yards? Like when we put Logan Diggs in the third quarter, because we're giving Williams, Emery are the top two guys in the depth chart, and we go to Diggs because to give a guy a break. Can we put in Logan Diggs middle of the third quarter and expect that he can get us 2-3 4-yard gain and not lose yardage? Now, there is plays where he does lose yardage because he kind of does dance too often. I think that's something they're going to clean up with. Hey, just take the yard or two. Do not dance too much, because especially in the SEC with defenses are faster defenses, do not get away from the dancing. Make the one. I know you can he does have the ability to make a couple quick cuts and burst out of them. Make the one cut, get the yard or two, so we can stay ahead of the sticks, especially third or fourth quarter when we're leaning on you. So yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on with Logan Diggs. Also shows the ability to hurdle defenders, can put his head down, fall forward. Some of the other things I noticed about Diggs' game. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that with Diggs. So Josh Williams too, staying with the running backs. Williams, if you remember, was a former walk-on. I think that's awesome. Williams, yeah, that was one of the questions that stood out. What did you learn being on the 2019 national title team? One of the few guys left, and he said that being around Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, seeing the work ethic those guys put in. Yeah, if you really watch Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, they are really exemplify that high-end, elite level, put your head down, championship level work ethic. So it's cool to see that there's still a guy on that roster that remembers what that looked like, and that could be, with the LSU team getting probably the most national title hype since 2019. I think that's very important to have a guy like this around. But yeah, with Josh Williams, it's a lot like Logan Diggs. Can catch the ball out of the backfield, can make some quick cuts, burst out of those. Tough runner, actually can run with some power, even though he's not the biggest guy in the world, and competes. Competitive toughness. Josh Williams, really a guy I give credit to the competitive toughness that he has and plays with. I think he's a really nice running back overall, and I think he is a guy that. Classic guy that some of the fan base, and myself included a little bit, would say this is a guy that, maybe he's just, can we find something better? And I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but I think that is kind of like the initial, because it's such a high standard that LSU sets at running back. I think that's the initial response is, Josh Williams, solid player, good all-around player, competes, gets after it, former walk-on, cool story. But is there another guy who's the guy that's going to really break out and steal the show? And Josh Williams, to me, Josh Williams in most years for LSU is kind of like the strong RB2, RB3, guy that you can come in later, maybe put him in on third down. But yeah, I don't think you should undersell his game at all, even though I have done a little bit. It's not every year you're going to have a Leonard Fournette type of guy. But yeah, Josh Williams, he's going to play a role for this team, certainly, even with all the depth they have at running back. John Emery coming back, like I've touched on, is big too. Goodwin's certainly a guy that's capable. Goodwin I saw running with the twos in practice a couple days ago. So yeah, excited to hear excited to really see how the running back, just week one against Florida State, how are the running backs used? Who starts the game? Most likely it's going to be Josh Williams. How much does John Emery play? How do they rotate backs in? Do we see Williams, Goodwin, Emery, Diggs? Do we see all four of those guys? I think it's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I'm going to shift. So I want to shift gears here. So I forgot to touch on, even though I've been doing it, I forgot LSU landed JUCO tight end Connor Gilbreath back in June. He's from a junior college out in California, and this is a guy who has the versatility with his size to play offensive tackle. I think that's interesting, and that kind of raises a question: are we going to see more of that, guys with the versatility to play offensive tackle or tight end? I think that'll be something certainly to watch coming up. But this is a guy who is a dominant blocker. You see, really in the run game, he can really get after it. Really drive people out of the play. Can hold blocks long. Shows aggression. So, yeah, Gilbreath, this is a guy who I think you got Mason Taylor, the good all-around tight end. So you add him along with Mac Markway, another really good tight end who was just a fearless blocker, a guy that really just looks to punish people, especially when he's pulling. So Mac Markway, Connor Gilbreath, yeah, tight end is going to should be really strong this year overall for LSU. Now with the addition of Gilbreath, now you got Mason Taylor, the all-around pass catcher, blocker, and then you have Gilbreath, Markway, guys that can really block. Jackson McGowan, a guy who's got some upside as a receiver. He's going to be an incoming true freshman out of Ohio, but Sounds like McGowan might be a year away from getting meaningful or from getting a lot of snaps. He's got to get stronger, got to get in the weight room, bulk up a little bit more. But yeah, he shows a really good skill set as a receiving tight end. I didn't really get to evaluate a lot of his blocking, but yeah, as a receiver, he should have some upside at tight end. Pimpton, another guy too. Sounds like he's leaned up a little bit. He's another guy, a big body, worked the middle of the field. It's going to be a matchup problem for a lot of people at 6'6". So with Pimpton, Markway, Gilbreath, and Mason Taylor, the main starter, there's some depth at tight end, and once again, it's my compliment to Brian Kelly. You got a guy that really complements what you already have. So Gilbreath, versatility to play offensive tackle if you run into potentially some injuries, hopefully not. You got Gilbreath, a guy that can block. Markway, a guy that certainly can block. I think should be ready year one. Markway does show some ability as a pass catcher too. Does a good job working underneath routes. So yeah, with Gilbreath, McGowan, Markway, Mason Taylor, you have a good mix of guys who some guys are stronger as pass catchers and some guys are stronger as blockers. So you got a good mix of kind of talent in that. You have a good mix in that sense. So I think that's really cool. And the tight end position should be fun to watch. I think that's what's really cool about this LSU team. A lot of position groups are really interesting, and it'll be fun to watch and see how they develop and see who emerges. Like with wide receiver, I'm begging to see who's going to emerge of the true freshmen. Is it Kai Preen? Is it Kyle Parker, who I really like? Is it Shelton Sampson Jr.? Is it the kid out of Miami? So yeah, that's what's so cool about this LSU team is who is going to emerge? Who's going to emerge for them? And which positions are the strongest? Last year, Brian Kelly was asked what positions are the strongest, and he said defensive line. This year, defensive line should be pretty strong. I think defensive line has some guys who are just going to be kind of just, solid rotational guys. I think Paris Shan is probably going to be that. I think Jefferson's a solid rotational guy, even though I think he probably could. There will be some games I think Jefferson sees quite a bit of snaps and really makes an impact, but I think other games it's mostly going to be, I think a lot of games it's going to be Mekhi Wingo and Mason Smith just dominant in the interior, but yeah, I think Paris Shand has a lot of ability. Jefferson has ability. Jacobian Gilroy is a guy who's a pretty high recruit, a guy that just has not really maxed out his potential. I think he takes another step this year, even if that doesn't mean even if that means he's kind of like the third guy in that rotation, maybe gets just a few snaps a game. Can Gilroy get a little bit better? Can he continue to improve? I think that'll be interesting. Quincy Wiggins is a guy who Savion Jones was talking about this. Quincy Wiggins has a really strong, lean, muscular body, a guy that really looks the part. Guy that in high school really could get around the edge and win with speed. We'll see if he can consist. We'll see how that translates. I'm sure he still can do that. We'll see if he can add some more of a power element to his game to really help out his speed rush and really help out his overall pass rush. But yeah, Quincy Wiggins, a guy who if you hear players talk about a guy, it's usually because they must be doing some things right and really moving in the right direction. So Quincy Wiggins, a guy that Savion Jones really likes. And Savion Jones, another guy to really watch. And I think Savion Jones does take another step, even if it's not like a big leap this year. I think Savion Jones does continue to improve, and I think he is. I think he does stay stays locked in as that consistent. Is that starter at defensive end. But yeah, Quincy Wiggins, guy that's absolutely ripped, looks absolutely shredded, and not that a muscular tone build is everything, but it is a lot of times indicative of how a guy plays. Because the better shape you're in, the higher you put yourself in a chance to play high end. If your body is maxed out as far as in shape and tone, muscular, then you're likely going to play to your potential. And Quincy Wiggins, his potential, his upside is fairly high with his, like I touched on, his ability to win with speed, win off the edge. So him being in tremendous shape is really going to help him reach his potential to the fullest. But yeah, with LSU, I think Greg Brooks is a guy I touched on is going to have to play well. Does Greg Brooks get pushed? I think that's the other thing. Does Andre Sam push Greg Brooks? Because to me, Andre Sam, like, the more I watch of Andre Sam, the more I feel like they're going to have to find a starting job for him. Because that's the thing, like, Greg Brooks is going to be a hard guy to bench just because he's an experienced guy at this point, especially a guy that's just played a lot of SEC football at Arkansas and LSU. But to me, Andre Sam he's going to have to they are going to have to find a way for him to get on the field, even if that means them subbing him in for Greg Brooks maybe. Because Greg Brooks is a guy that, yeah, I think with his experience, they're not in hitting the tenacity and competitive toughness he plays. I don't think he's going to get benched altogether, but do they take him out and they play Andre Sam some snaps at free safety? Yeah, that's the thing. I guess I should add to that. I think Andre Sam does have the ability to play some free safety as well, too. So, but yeah, Greg Brooks, you feel like he is a guy, he is who he is at this point, which, like I've touched on, it's a good thing, or it's, yeah, yes, is it a bad thing, or is it a great thing? No, but is it a bad thing? No. So it's kind of like the happy medium, I guess. Greg Brooks is, he's not going to make a lot of game-changing plays. Now he's like him and Major Burns are very similar in the sense that they're probably going to be impactful in some games. Maybe they'll have a tipped interception, force a fumble. I think they're going to make an impact in a few games, but they're not a consistently guys that teams are going to fear in the secondary, Burns and Brooks. And I think that's what Brian Kelly has kind of said that, he's not really said that directly at those guys, but that's what he's kind of said it indirectly that, we like, I'm kind of I don't know. This is he has not that he said anything to take away or been disrespectful to those guys, but I think he kind of understands that they do need to play a little bit better in the secondary, and do it with guys that have high floor but are not like elite movement skills. I think it's hard to really become feared in the secondary. Without those guys with elite movement skills. But yeah, I think Greg Brooks is going to make some plays. He's just not going to make enough plays to really be a key difference maker. But yeah, I think that this goes back to Andre Sam and or Zai Alexander really having a breakout year. Goes back to Mason Smith, Wingo. Even if you say Wingo's not a difference maker, Mason Smith, an impact player at defensive line, Harold Perkins and Omar Spates at linebacker, key difference makers, and then a difference maker in the secondary. So now you have a difference maker at all three levels. That is so crucial, especially if you're trying to win especially if you're trying to win an SEC title and a national championship. Difference makers at all three levels. That is a absolutely key ingredient to getting that job done. But yeah, I mean, offensively, I think that offensively the offensive line is going to be really strong. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see how this offensive line looks. I think. There'll be a lot of people saying, in practice, I think the offensive line, we really need to see if they take another step overall improvement. I think a lot of that is going to be on full display against Florida State. I know everyone's going to talk about the offensive line looks really good in practice, but that, to me, that doesn't really say much because we already have established that this offensive line is good. Okay. So to me, and I guess there's some things that you can take away from scrimmages and from the ones versus ones in practice. But to me, the intensity without the, the intensity is not kind of what it is at practice. Not saying it's not intense, but you don't really see the. I think it's hard to fully get a full grasp of the ones or the LSU offensive line in practice, just because they're not always going against the ones on defense, so it's just limited snaps. I think against Florida State in a high intense game where the line of scrimmage is going to be emphasized, I think that is where you'll really see how much better this LSU offensive line is. And I think that if they do come out and they really win that battle against the Florida State's defensive line in a game where Florida State has even improved their defensive line from last year, then I think it's safe to say that LSU, even though it's just one game, I think it is safe to say that the LSU offensive line has really taken a step as a whole. But yeah, Emory Jones, Will Campbell, they're going to be critical in that game. I think especially the interior, Dellinger, Turner, Frazier. They're going to have. I think they're all three going to have one of some of their best games of their career if they're going to win that game, because Lovett, Fisk, some of the guys Florida State has in the interior can rush the passer, and they are very strong and physical at the point of attack. So I think the interior, Campbell and Jones obviously are going to be crucial, but I think the key is going to be Dellinger, Turner, Frazier in the interior having some of their best games, and then on the defensive side, I think it's like Brian Kelly said, you want to start with the inside out. That's always been his philosophy, and I think that philosophy is going to play a role in the Florida State game. I think if Mason Smith, Wingo win on the inside of the defensive line, I think that's a critical part, and I think the LSU offensive line interior winning will be a critical part. I think if they win those two, if those two battles are won, if Wingo and Mason Smith win on that side, and then the interior of the LSU offensive line win on that side, I think LSU wins this game. I think that's what you're going to have to watch. LSU interior offensive line and then LSU defensive interior offensive line is going to be crucial, to winning this game. But yeah, Miles Frazier in the interior. I think Miles Frazier is probably the most underrated player on the LSU offensive line. You saw he's just been consistent. Now he's not a high-end level guard. Like, I don't think he'll be a guy that's drafted high and talked about as one of the top interior offensive linemen for next year's draft. But I think that Frazier, has a really good skill set that fits well for LSU and fits well in college football, just because he's so competitive, such a high level of competitive toughness, and he's always in a good position, does a good job staying in an athletic position, always looking to pick up stunts, blitzes, active hands. So yeah, Miles Frazier, he's a fun player to watch, and a guy that's really been played a critical role in the LSU offensive line really coming together. So Will Campbell, Emory Jones, the main guys, and then Frazier kind of like that next guy. But yeah, I keep hearing a buzz about Aaron Anderson, the transfer from Alabama at wide receiver. Anderson going to play primarily in the slot, you got to believe. But yeah, I like his ability, and I think he's a name we're going to hear more and more buzz about. There was a reporter asked a specific question about Aaron Anderson's game. So yeah, I like his skill set overall. He seems like a competitor. And maybe it's kind of like the thing with Jamison Williams, guy that couldn't get on the field at Ohio State. Now, Bama's been a little down at wide receiver, but some guys can't get on the field at Bama for whatever reason. Maybe Anderson just thought he was too buried in the depth chart, that they weren't going to give him enough opportunities, even if he did have a really nice camp. So, yeah, I think Aaron Anderson, a guy who, even if he doesn't start for LSU, I think they're going to make an emphasis to get this guy on the field and get him some touches, especially what he can do after the catch in the slot, and he's got good hands as well. So I'm going to wrap with that. Thanks for tuning in to Bayou Bengals Football. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show.